Well, hello everyone. I'm Elena Rico. I'm an ESC European Solidarity Corps volunteer at Teleradio City in Padua. First of all, I want to highlight that this call will be recorded and a report will be produced afterwards. And well, Teleradio City is an organization founded in 1971 and has been dedicated to independent communication for 45 years. Originating as a counter-information broadcaster, as it was typical of the Italian social movements of the 70s, it was born as a free and independent Radio Sherwood, that today is still owned by Teleradio City, together with the online magazine of Global Project.info and the Melting Pot Europe project. The organization history aligns closely with the Sustainable Information Goals, which focuses on establishing an international connection between independent journalists and social activists in Europe. This project, carried out together with our partners from Belgium, Malta, and Romania, aims at strengthening journalists and civil society organizations' capacity to collaborate and construct investigations and narrative able to generate positive changes, focusing on social justice, environmental protections, anti-corruption efforts, and democracy. Today, we will go into the project's first public event after the workshop and the first debate. Indeed, Info is designed as a pathway for journalists and activists, entailing a comprehensive training course to produce journalistic investigations, but also featuring free workshops and debates covering various topics, from the methodological ones like the use of sources, inquiry methods, legal aspect, etc., to the analysis of some specific thematic areas, particularly related to social rights, ecology, and corruption. At the end of these events and of the training process, scholarships will be awarded to support 2 journalistic investigations per country in order to promote also economically the sustainability of independent journalism. Finally, we will develop a manifesto for sustainable information to foster a model of collaboration between independent media and civic society organizations. Well, thank you everyone again for being here, and I will now hand over to Giovanni for the presentation of the debate.
Hi everyone, and I hope you can hear me well. And I'm Giovanni from Teleradio City, and I will briefly present the topic of this debate. This event is part of a series of debates on false narratives, which focus on distorted and manipulative mediatic discourses through different thematic areas. On the one hand, we want to focus on and analyze mainstream media and political representation that deliberately falsify or exploit sensitive subjects of public debate, maybe in order to gain consensus or carry out reactionary campaigns. On the other hand, we want to give space to critical activism and journalism experiences that instead contribute to combating these misnarratives and enrich the public debate with complex and thoughtful discourses, placing social and climate justice at the center. Today's topic is climate change and more generally the ecological and environmental crisis that dramatically characterize our days. This topic appears as particularly interesting and controversial. Indeed, in recent years, the scientific basis for the ecological crisis has become overwhelming, as proven, for example, by the indisputable reports of the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Scientists who are climate change deniers or skeptics are in fact increasingly marginal and residual, often amplified much more in the media than within the scientific community. However, we believe that the real turning point on the climate crisis discourses, as often is the case, has not come from the scientific affirmation, but from the global growth since 2018, in particular, of environmental movements throughout the world, especially in the wake of Fridays for Future. With the emergence of a widespread public awareness on the need of a radical change to avoid the environmental catastrophe, institutions, media, and big corporations have also been forced to take a green turn towards sustainability. But this turn has often been on the linguistic, only appearance, without changing the core, the economic and political choices. Thus, the concept of greenwashing was born to describe the practice of sticking to the business as usual, meaning fossil investments, land consumption, resource exploitation, but with a green sauce, as you can clearly see in the mediatic campaigns of big multinationals. It is within and beyond this green sauce, this green blanket, that many journalists and activists in recent years have tried to investigate in order to reveal the truth behind the slogans, both by large corporations, but also by governments, by the European Union, was Green Deal seems to be taking step backwards instead of forward. Meanwhile, extreme weather events increasingly affect our cities. The temperature rise and the urgency for change is increasing every day. As a social movements, we have imposed a shift in language and priorities, but today it's also up to us to investigate and monitor the policies, the interests, and the falsehoods that are being constructed to slow down an actual ecological transition. For this reason, in this debate, we have invited environmental activists who will report on their experiences of false narratives, but also counter narratives. It will be particularly interesting to bring together and compare the experiences from different places, such as Italy, Romania, and Malta. And let me just share my screen very quickly. These are just some pictures, maybe you can see. Yeah, about what I was talking about, what we define as greenwashing, and as a linguistic term that also the climate change, environmental awareness has produced, but that many times is not reflected in political and economic choices. And these are just some advertisements from famous multinationals that are just to testify what I was talking about in a visual way. But yeah, I don't want to take more time. And I pass the ball to Elena again to present our speakers.
Thank you, Giovanni. 1 second. Now you hear me well? Okay. Well, yeah, I will go now with the presentation of the speakers. Firstly, we have Alex Gavan, that is a leading Romanian mountaineer and an environmentalist. He has climbed numerous 8,000 meters without the support of oxygen. Today, he is involved in humanitarian and, above all, environmental projects. In fact, he is the initiator of the Green Belt initiative that aims to defend the forest around the capital city of Bucharest. Then from the No Big Ship committee, we have Marta Sotoriva as its representative. This committee is a social and environmental committee born in Venice in 2012. Its aim is to safeguard the Lagoon of Venice from the damages caused by the cruise ship industry, particularly in regard to the big ships. It has been involved in demonstration, public debates, independent research, as well as various forms of direct action in order to give visibility to the issue. The committee is also engaged in an outreach campaign that looks at the way overtourism and other exploitative phenomena are impacting Venice and its lagoon. And then we have Astrid Pella, that is the coordinator of one of the leading Maltese NGOs, Flimkien Gal Amjend Ahar, Together from a Better Environment. She specializes in planning and development issues related to environmental protection and works to protect Malta's rich architectural heritage, rural resources, and quality of life through lobbying, raising awareness, public relations, research, and regenerating projects. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
So we have some questions for the first round, and we ask you to stay in like 10 minutes per speaker, and afterward we will have more questions. And the first one is very general, and we ask you if you can tell what are the most common false narratives concerning climate change and environment in your country, which are the most prominent environmental issues that are distorted in public representations, and what are the methods used to communicate these false narratives, why and how are these created. And we ask first to Marta, then Astrid, and finally Alex to intervene. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? Okay, great. So, well, thank you. But firstly, thank you for having us at this debate. We are very pleased to share our knowledge and practices, and yes, especially regarding false narratives, since it's a huge topic especially for climate and environmental activism. We've been witnessing this happening in the last few years, especially. And the case of Venice, I think, is representative of this. Well, first, let me give you some coordinates, since maybe not all of you know the history of the committee. The committee was born in 2012, and for more than 10 years has been mobilizing for the extromission of the big ships out of the Lagoon of Venice. We've been successful in this. In 2020, after 10 years of mobilization, the Draghi decree finally issued the extromission of the ships, stating that the extromission should be final, but we should go for the big ships should go for an offshore port. But in the meantime, the temporary solution has been individuated in Porto Marghera, in the industrial area. So and I think this is very important, because when we talk about false narratives, we have to divide between the two phases of the committee, the one that comes before the Draghi decree and the one that comes after the Draghi decree. That is the phase that we are addressing right now. Before 2020, when the push for climate justice, and the push is coming from movements that has highly influenced the public debate and public opinion regarding the climate crisis and the environmental crisis. Before all of this happened, the main false narrative that we faced as committee was happening from the cruise ship lobbies as well as the port authority and the port front. So the forces that are both public and private that has pushed and had pushed, and they are still pushing for an agenda that sees the industry well and alive here in Venice. This narrative has been especially focused in creating a split between the activists that were perceived, that have been tried to be perceived as a small and a little portion of the debate on the matter, that have been framed as ideological and pushing for environmental protection that doesn't respect and doesn't allow for work and industrial development to happen. And I think that our committee has been successful in instead reframing this narrative as false, because they transformed an issue that was perceived as, I mean, the cruise ship industry has not happened in one day. It was a process that saw the intensification of traffic that reached its peak in 2019 with more than 500 ships entering and exiting the lagoon. So we are talking about more than 1,000 entrances in the Lagoon of Venice, with tourist traffic that was over 1.5 million tourists per year. So when we talk about this, the way in which tourism is perceived in the city, the committee has been proactively seeking to push back against this narrative, framing these issues as an international issue, framing the safeguard of Venice. I think the microphone went off. So we've been, the committee has been successful in reframing and is pushing back against this narrative, as I was saying, and showing how it wasn't just the people living in Venice. So it wasn't just a matter of a community fighting against this industry, but also a struggle that was international, that was people all over the world, not just the citizens, perceiving this issue as detrimental and threatening for the survival of Venice. Let me show you, I've got some pictures so you can have a better understanding. So the committee, when I was talking about the committee being successful in making this issue international, you can see that it was mainly about sensibilizing for the incompatibility that this industry had in the city. So here you have some pictures of cruise ships entering in the city center. And here are some pictures of incidents that took place in 2019 and 2018, which created huge scandal. That was a watershed in 2019 after the San Basilio incident, when one of the ships crashed against the docks in the city center. So just to give you an idea, this is the Lagoon of Venice. This is the way in which the ships used to enter, and this is where the Draghi decree came into action, banning the ships from this route. And well, we can. I don't know how long I've been talking for. Have I still got a few minutes? I'm asking Giovanni. Yeah, I've got them. So, and this was the first, I would say, the first phase. The second phase, the phase we are facing right now, is that the port authority, the port authority forces, together with the cruise ship lobbying, are practically trying at the moment to get the ships back from the backyard. So what they are trying to do is to create the infrastructure to implement cruise ship traffic, getting from the Malamocco Canal, which is this one over here, getting the ships back, not just back to the Marittima where they used to come before, but also creating temporary docks all over the Porto Marghera area, from Chioggia to Fusina to the Porto Marghera area, where we also have the industrial sites. So I think that when we talk about false narratives, what we are witnessing right now is especially dealing with the attempt of the port authority to frame this solution as more sustainable, both for the industry as well as the safeguard of Venice and the Lagoon. So the falsehood right now is all involved in reframing the narrative, trying to sustain that we are the dichotomy is no more jobs against the environment. So either you save jobs and save the industrial development and the cruise ship development, or you save the environment. They are saying that this new solution is compatible both for the environment as well as industrial development. What we are pushing back against is resisting this narrative. To actually realize this new project, they would need to excavate more than 7 million tons of toxic mud, and this would cause the devastation of all of the south of the Lagoon area, as well as increase the industrial risk, the risk of industrial incidents and industrial contamination happening precisely because they are trying to have the ships in a very dangerous area of the city. And this is what we had a demonstration, and I'm going to my conclusion for the moment. We had a demonstration just last week, and we got to Punta Fusina, so we arrived over here, and we got to move the demonstration. We moved direct action from where it used to take place to where they want to create the docks right now. So yes, I hope I answered your question, and of course I think there's eventually a lot more to say.
Thank you, Marta. And Astrid, if you want.
Yes, right. So in Malta, false narratives have been the byline of our recent economic history. It has been characterized by false narratives ever since the 1960s, where there was it begins then, and at that time there was a slight justification for it, because in the 1960s the Maltese government faced a crisis due to independence, an economic crisis, as Malta gained independence but lost the millions that it was receiving from Britain, which supported all its services, social services, hospitalization, infrastructure, everything. So it tried to compensate by creating an economic boom in attracting foreigners to retire in Malta. That worked. That actually tided Malta over a critical period. However, it had a very, very damaging backlash 10 years later, when Europe faced the economic crisis of the 70s, and every time a politician, a government wanted to boost the economy, it resorted to the same formula. This became a formula for success. However, at what cost? In the 1970s, it was at great human cost, when government gave out plots of land all over Malta, very, very cheap, encouraging young couples to go in for projects where they were totally out of their depth, and it led to financial ruination for many, many people. So it was an extremely exploitative policy. This carried on, so this built up the mantra that Malta depended, the Maltese economy depended on construction, what they call here development. It is a false narrative that carried on right to this day. So to give you an idea, in 2011, employment in construction stood at 11,000 people. Employment in tourism stood at 55,000. Yet, our politicians were constantly feeding us the lie that the Maltese economy depended on tourism, on construction, when it was one of the smallest sectors. Now, this was inflated in 2013 for the reason that a party came into power on the strength of support from the construction sector. It needs to be understood that in Malta, the politicians get their election campaigns paid by developers, by construction companies. So it is in their interest to convince the electorate that this is good for them, that this is essential to the economy. And yet the truth comes out again and again. Both in 2018 and 6 years later, in 2022, construction is the penultimate in terms of GDP. So you have sectors like professional, scientific and technical activities, which produce 243 million compared to the GDP output of construction, which lags at 670 and 270 million. And it is only ahead of agriculture, forestry, and fisheries, which is the classic Cinderella. So that carried on and resulted in the fact that since 2013, our country has been overwhelmed by a building boom since this government was elected in 2013 on the strength of being financed by the construction industry. And so our politicians feel obliged to give them anything they want. The false narrative that it is good for us is belied by the fact that certain conditions like asthma have spiraled due to the rates of pollution, partially caused by construction and partially caused by traffic emissions, which again have been portrayed as the benchmark of the prosperity of our islands, without going into the externalities of what it is costing us in terms of public health. So that is one case. Another case we can go into briefly is the specifics. So you have the overall policies which are built on a lie. And then you have certain schemes like the rationalization scheme, where the government gave over vast swathes of open land, virgin land, for development, for urbanization. Over there, the country was told that this was in order to allow families to build homes for their children. Instead, you get these huge sites, which could only be developed by major contractors and into areas for 500 units. Now, I know of no family that needs homes for 500 children. Yet this was repeated over and over as a good thing. Now, coming forward, one can go by the adage that half-truth is the equivalent, is as bad as a lie. We have these narratives perpetuated by lack of access to information. So, and by wrong information. Again, false narratives. At the time of the rationalization scheme, we were told that the land coverage of Malta would creep up from 27.8% to 33.8%. Now, we are being told that that figure has miraculously shrunk down again to 27.5%. But of course, this is, as you repeat the same false narrative over and over again, it is believed. And in fact, it is being quoted as such, even by people in authority, people and journalists, because there is no way of contradicting it. It is being submitted in various documents to the EU. Now, the EU, whenever it is challenged on such matters by Maltese NGOs or residents, turns to the member state for confirmation. The member state simply validates the false narrative, which the EU accepts. So we are trapped in this situation and denied the right to counter it, denied the right to check, in order to have this sort of information. So our requests for information are repeatedly being denied in terms of our requests for freedom of information, access to such information. And this violates the Aarhus Convention, the Directive on Public Information. This is greatly damaging. And in fact, last week, the EU commenced action against Malta on 3 counts of withholding of information. I'll hand over there. That's it from me at this stage.
Thank you, Astrid. Very, very interesting. And now we have Alex from Romania.
Hello, everyone. So first, Giovanni, with your approval, I would prefer to take it question by question because, you know, I have blind spots from altitude from 8,000 meters. So you put, I don't know, 5, 6 questions and I already forgot them. So let's take them one by one. One thing before starting is that, you know, I really thought that Romania is the Cinderella of Europe, usually on most of the issues, you know. But right now I see that Malta is faring much, much worse than Romania in these things. And I'm kind of shocked, I must say. But let's go to the questions. First one, please. I cannot.
The first one was, could you tell us what are the most common false narratives concerning climate change and environment in your country? And
okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So as you can see from the previous answers of Marta and of Astrid, you know, the issues are more larger than the climate change, yeah, and they usually subscribe to the bigger issue of the environmentalism. And as Astrid says, and this environmentalism is subscribing the much larger issue of political, let's say, controlled narratives, okay? Because these narratives usually start from having having in mind to reach some political gains in elections and not only, okay? So I would rather focus on the environmental issues at large, because in Romania, I couldn't say right now there are false narratives related to climate change. People are aware in Romania, I could say, by climate change, and I don't really see in public space things that can be really considered issues in this area of false narratives. But otherwise, of course, there are a lot of false narratives, and I will just try to give a couple of examples that are different, to cover different topics. One was this huge issues of cyanide mining, gold cyanide mining by using cyanide, extracting gold by using cyanide, which is a highly destructive method for the land that is how to say, used upon. And for the past 15 years, there has been a huge struggle and a huge fight of the civil society to stop this mining project in Roșia Montană in Romania. Roșia Montană, it's a site in Transylvania, and it has a history of digging gold there back to 2000 years or something, from the times of the Dacians, and there comes the Romans, and then comes the Habsburgic Empire and so on. So the idea is this Canadian company, having also investors from everywhere. Also, it was listed by on the stock exchange. Did a lot of how to say, misuse of the law in order to obtain different kind of authorization and so on. At the expense of having, destroyed a mountain, a huge mountain. Imagine a mountain as huge as the area of the whole Bucharest. So it's a kind of hole. Imagine a hole in the ground of the area of Bucharest, and it would have created a big environmental disasters. And all the time, they paid with millions and millions, a lot of press. This is public knowledge in Romania, to present this in a positive manner. But luckily, after 15 years, and also they sued the Romanian government, and some of the people in the Romanian government, were making public declaration about the project. And because of this, the price of the stocks was going up, and they said, oh my God, we're gonna lose the process in Washington. So all these statements were made to, to manipulate, as a false narrative. But luckily, the Romanian government, nobody was expecting it, won the process. The company, and they were asking for the Romanian government and 6 billion euro in fine, 6 billion euro in fine. And now they have to pay 10 million euro in the company, the Canadian company. They have to pay 10 million euro in like, I don't know, law fees. I don't know how to tell it. And because of this, the company got into incapacity of payment. So it's a kind of funny now. And in the meantime, the Roșia Montană area also become a UNESCO site. And we in Romania want to, to transform it in a destination, because it's a historical culture and a wonderful natural destination. So yeah, this. I was one involved in this movement against this mining company. Yeah, I was part of the movement, and that is that. Maybe I will not go to another example because there are so many questions. So let's go to the next question.
Yeah, but it was like many questions, but actually the same topic. The second one was, which are the most prominent environmental issues that are distorted in public representation in your country? And what are the
one of them, I think, is the problem of bears, the animals, bears. In Romania, we are lucky enough to have the large carnivore populations in Europe, of course, outside Russia, because Russia goes to the Pacific. And now I don't like to consider Russia anymore anyway from Europe, so let's stick to this. So we have the largest bear and lynx and the wolves population, and also, you know, the largest percent of the Europe old growth forests and virgin forests. We have 60% of all the remaining virgin and old growth forests in Europe. And the thing is that in Romania, many politicians, many politicians, half of the parliaments are hunters. And of course, and another thing is that back in 2015, I was an honorary advisor to the Minister of Environment, and I was contributed to a bill in order to ban the hunting for trophy, right? The hunting for pleasure, for trophy. And because we have this large number of bears, and the authorities, you know, for many years had a close eye at the illegal logging in Romania, the destruction of the habitat of this bear, you know, resulted in a kind of unbalance between their habitat and interfering with human habitats, you know, like villages, like cities. Imagine right now that the bears are going down in Brașov. Brașov is the city in Transylvania close to that famous Dracula castle, which, by the way, has never been owned by Dracula. So this is another false narrative who goes back to the Saxons 400 years ago. Okay, so it's not a new phenomenon. Okay, so the bears is going there, you know, the bears is going to, you know, Transfăgărășan, which was this road in between Transylvania and Wallachia, two Romanian provinces, that this Jeremy Clarkson said that it's the most beautiful mountain road in the world. Of course, this might not be a false narrative, but of course it's an exaggeration. So let's say one of the most beautiful mountain roads in the world. For sure, it is, you know, but to say the most, the best, you know, I'm really very reluctant to these kinds of words. So now the bears are coming down, and now if you go to that road where hundreds of thousands of people are visiting each year, you can find 20 bears on the road, you know, and the authorities say, oh, I don't know what to do with the bear. It's very simple what to do with the bear. So the idea is that the politicians want to put the bear against the human, not the bear and the human to coexist together, okay? For two reasons. Because they want to hunt the bear for their own pleasure, because they have big egos and small soul. This is one thing. And secondly, because they don't want to try to address the issue. You know, they're not really doing their jobs. But a few years ago, there has been, you know, a big study called the Species National Action Plan, who costed hundreds of thousands of euros. It's like a almost 200 pages document who deals exactly with the bear. So in that document, you find that it's a document sanctioned by the Ministry of Environment. On that document, you find exactly what you do with the bear, okay? From point 1 to point 10. You know, I don't know, to relocate the bear, to put electric fences, to blah, blah, whatever. I don't get into details. And usually the first thing they do, the Romanian authorities, they shoot the bear, you know, but it's forbidden according to Romanian and European law to shoot the bear. So they shoot the bear all the time by doing like derogations. Do you know derogation? The word derogation. So by doing derogation, but actually it's illegal. So, you know, so if you put the microphone, you go there to the ministry, to the politician, oh my God, what do we do with the bear? And they start to make all the time a very complex story, you know, but the short answer is just apply the Species National Action Plan for the bear. That is lies in a locket in the ministry.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Well, I will launch the second questions with you can answer in the order you choose by raising the hand, because the aim is to create like a little debate, no, to be more fluid. So, first of all, would you like to respond to what the other speakers have said? And how does it resonate for you in your experience of activism in your country and national press? And how do these false narratives affect your work of activist? Thank you.
Okay, so well, thank you very much for the other speeches, because I think that there's certainly common ground, and I was especially thinking of what Astrid was talking about, for like it resonated with me in the way in which what we are seeing in Venice is, for example, the way in which they are posting numbers. As Astrid before was talking about the way in which they are forcing the numbers on the construction industry, for example, in order to have to get more public funding and get resources. And the same thing is happening here. As I was telling you before, one of the biggest concerns before 2012 was that of preserving jobs. So the main argument of the port, the port front, was that to save the 5,000 jobs that were involved in the cruise ship industry in Venice. Our independent research, the research that we had together with some professor of University of Venice, revealed that actually those 5,000 jobs, for example, yes, they existed, but just to give you a very small example, 500 of them were linked to a factory that was producing the butter cubes, the small butter cubes they serve for breakfast. That was a factory that was in the Netherlands. So, and we could give you many other examples. The supply chain connected to the ships is global in the way in which there's nothing getting back to the land and to the communities that are impacted by the cruise ship industry. There's very few jobs connected to the industry, and many of them are precarious, they are seasonal. There has been research. I mentioned an article by the New York Times that reports the way in which cruise ship jobs are coming from third world countries, and there's huge percentage of exploitation within the ships. And so the way this is what we've been witnessing in the year before the decree. What we are seeing right now is slightly different in the way in which they push against mobilization and social movements is by saying, especially through local media and local newspaper, they're addressing the issues. In Venice right now, we have three of them. We have a huge issue with overtourism, meaning that there's 20 to 30 million tourists coming every year. And then there's a huge problem with pollution. We are the area, the Veneto area in the northwest of Italy, the northeast of Italy, is one of the most polluted area in Europe. And Venice, before the drug decree, was on the top 3 most polluted city in Italy. Our cruise ship pollutes as much as 14,000 cars. So the cruise ship industry right now is polluting as much as the entire cars the cars that are now in all of Europe. We have also a huge problem with the lagoon safeguard. What we are saying, and this came out especially regarding the UNESCO threat of putting Venice on the blacklist of endangered sites. They are the way in which they are affecting us is by saying that they are actually we are very good at our jobs. Activists are doing a great job, and we are helping them to address issues. So they are neutralizing our voices by putting up, again, more false narratives, saying that, just to give you an example, saying that overtourism will be saved by the ticket experiment that is happening right now, for which that we've been contesting since it's not putting an end to overtourism. Instead, it's getting money out of this phenomenon. And regarding pollution and the lagoon, the endangerment the lagoon is facing right now, the projects they are pushing for at the moment are more dangerous than the routes the ships were taking before 2020. What they are saying, though, is they are using European funds, as well as Italian public fundings. We are talking about more than 300 million, but saying that they are going to excavate the lagoon. Yes, it's not going to be an issue, for they are going to build an island, and this is called the channeling project, connected with the European fundings for the Green New Deal, basically saying that the Recovery Fund, saying that this massive island that is going to be more than 70 acres, it's a artificial island that goes along the canal they want to excavate. They are basically saying that this island is going to mitigate the effect of the tide produced by the ships. In proceeding with this new project, they are going against many laws, starting from the Seveso law, the law that prevents industrial and commercial traffic together with the cruise ship traffic, and also they are going against the regulation plan that regulates the traffic of the commercial harbor. So there's a huge conflict also regarding the commercial and the petrochemical area, for which a lot of workers are contesting the cruise ship project in Porto Marghera. What we are seeing right now, answering the question that you asked before, is that there's new opportunities opening. It's not easy for them to proceed on what they are doing. They need to force a lot of laws, and as well as going against the interest of the petrochemical area. But it's affecting us in the way we need to keep uncovering their lives. And this is huge for, I think, the role of the media, and we're going to get that, I think, later, and we can keep debating on this. But there's a huge role that the media, and especially in the independent media, can have in addressing and resisting this narrative that mainstream newspaper, where both local and national, I mean, in the case of Italy, are hugely in favor of this private interest.
Thank you, Marta. Would you like to answer, Astrid, Vela, or Alex, Gavan? We cannot hear you, sorry.
Yes, please, Astrid first, ladies first.
As regards the most contested sectors, and therefore the sectors that attract most false narratives, I have to go back to the construction sector development, because you need to be aware that land and land use, land is Malta's only natural resource. We do not have minerals, we do not have we do not have mountains, we do not have ski tourism, we do not have any natural, we do not have coal, we do not have any natural resources. Our only natural resource is land and stone to build up that land. Therefore, construction is the target of most speculation, most greed, most political contention. Just to put it in perspective, and going back to those figures, when I quoted those figures, the disparity between the real figures and the quoted figures, you need to keep in mind that the difference in the figures, that is 27.8 to 33.8, 6%, is almost the average built-up area in Europe. So the average in Europe is 7.5%. So we are lying over the total area built up in most European countries. Our politicians are putting out that lie. So this is extremely worrying. And accompanying it is the total refusal to do anything about it, because we are constantly demanding carrying capacity studies. In 1992, the planning authority had already stated that several areas in Malta, which compared to the Venice experience, which compared to Brussels, to Barcelona, I meant, Amsterdam, and all the towns that now are trying to put the brakes on tourism. So the planning authority had said that these areas in Malta had reached their carrying capacity and could not take more construction. Instead, we have had 30 years of rampant construction on steroids. Malta was the most bombed location in Europe during World War II. And yet, we have lost more historic buildings to untrammeled construction than to bombing. In World War II, Malta received the amount of bombs that fell on Dresden, Cologne, and Coventry every week. In 1942, every week we received as many bombs as those places received once during the war. So, and yet we have surpassed that destruction by inflicting it on ourselves. That, I hope, puts in a nutshell the dimensions of our problem. Now, we are calling constantly for carrying capacity studies, and our politicians, those in power, that unfortunately is the Socialist Party, which is the most speculative capitalist government that we have ever experienced, they are adamantly refusing to do carrying capacity studies. They are absolutely furious at our demands, because that exposes the suffering that they are inflicting on the people, also in overdevelopment in tourism. Our city, the city of Valletta, our capital city, is no longer a working, living city like Venice. The residents have been forced out. There is gentrification, buildings taken over. I have to say that Airbnb has done great damage to these historic places, pushing up the prices of property in order to redevelop them into Airbnb. Nothing is being done about that. We have an area which is like 1 square mile, which is what, 2.8 square kilometers, something like, correct me. I'm not so familiar in square kilometers. That has 100 hotels. 100 hotels and guest houses. So there we share the same problems as Venice. Now, going over onto a completely different subject, I will turn to environment in terms of flora and fauna, where we have similar problems as they have as regards bears. We have a big issue in Malta as regards bird hunting. Our governments feel that they depend on the votes of the bird hunting community and their families because they are very, very clannish. And so they are protecting the hunters at all costs. Now, there was supposed to be a ban from the EU, and our governments of both sides, that is both the conservatives, but especially the socialists, have negotiated with the EU. The final conclusion was that limited bird hunting should take place in the guise of research exercises. So this has translated, and the hunters would effectively police themselves and record themselves the number of birds that they have shot. This is laughable. It is putting the fox to guard the chickens, as we say. Obviously, there is only a fraction of killings being reported. And this research, the research has never been published of this fake research exercise, never been exposed. There's no access because no research is being carried out. And that is another very, very patently false narrative, which is headed by a minister, an elected minister, the Minister of Environment, who is in charge of this situation, is also a hunter himself. How can you have a hunter who is a Minister of Environment and Planning? If it were not so tragic, it would be laughable. I hand over to you.
Yes. Thank you. Elena?
Yeah.
Is it possible? May I have again the question? Sorry. Thank you. The question, sorry.
You can hear me well now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, one moment. Well, basically, the question are if you have some answers, some respond to what the other speakers have said, and how does it affect in your work as activist, and how does it resonate, like in your experience in your country, national press?
You mean how the false narrative are resonating to me and in the press? Sorry, I didn't get it so well.
Sorry, I don't hear you very well. Yeah.
So the question is how the false narratives are resonating in the press, or I don't really get it. Sorry. What is the question?
Sorry, maybe you can hear. It's how the experience of the other of Marta and Astrid resonate in your experience and in your
No,
country.
but before you put another question, Giovanni, the question that Astrid and Marta answered.
How false narrative affect your activity as an activist?
I don't really think of this. You know, I'm just dealing with what I have, with the material I have. I mean, it's not upsetting or frustrating for me. It's just something that I take as part of the game. So I consider myself and my team and the civil society I'm working with as part of the good part of the force, let's say. So yeah, it affects me in the way that things are taking longer because of this. And I will give you one concrete example, because you were mentioning before my project with the Green Belt of Bucharest. So basically, I started to think of this project back in 2017. And last year, I also put a bill into the parliament to protect all the forests around Bucharest. Because on one side, we are in the top 3 most polluted capitals in Europe, always changing places. So I don't know, with Athens, with Warsaw, whatever. It's one of the most polluted capitals. And we have infringement on this. And we have the, according to a European statistic, we have like the largest social costs related to the to pollution. Among all the capitals in Europe, this is 6.35 billion euro per year. It's a EU statistic. And also another statistic show, another official statistic, Romanian official statistic from the National Institute of Public Health, says that if the authorities will make their jobs on the things that they already not promised, they are in charge of doing, I don't know how to say, the average life in Bucharest will be 4 years more, right? So this, we have the city, the situation inside the city, and on the other hand, outside the city, we are basically cut the last remaining forests. Yes, because Bucharest it's in a very, very big plain. Yes, not mountain, not hill. It's on a plain. Yeah, and we have around Bucharest in what is called Ilfov County. The county surrounding Bucharest is called Ilfov. And Ilfov has a forest coverage of 16%. This, according to the Romanian law, it means a county with deficit of forest vegetation. To be out of this characterization, we need to have at least 30% forest coverage. So only in 2022, in these forests, and this forest takes 2,600 hectares. Only the legal points of logging were around 700, and only in 2022 they logged more than 500,000 trees, you know, which is a huge number if you take out into the consideration the small forests remaining. So basically, I founded this project to create the Green Belt of Bucharest, and also to create green belts around other cities in Romania that needs it. And it has, if you want, three pillars. First is to protect the forest around it, which I put a bill into the parliament. Then to do reforestations to connect this forest, and the third pillar is related with the opening this forest to the people, because right now the forests are allowed, the people are allowed into the forest only if the road is like an official tourist spot, which is crazy. So basically, I have my house near the forest here near Bucharest. I'm living 7 minutes drive from the airport. So if I go in the forest now, I am basically breaking the law. So the third pillar is to open this forest to the people on paths and on forestry roads for recreation, sports, and education. So getting back to the false narrative is this one of the biggest villains in this, and one of the biggest opposants. It's the forestry department, which basically, you know, people in Romania came to hate the forestry department because they are looking at the forest not in its entirety, but in its value of money. You know, they only see log to doing to sell the wood. You know, they are not thinking to all the other ecosystemic costs, ecosystemic benefits that the forest is giving for the people in the peri-urban areas. You know, and because of this, so imagine that I passed the law from the Senate with almost unanimity. Okay, it was only one vote against, and in all the Senate committees, they coming these people from the forestry department with such manipulations and half truths, and some of them plainly lies, that you look at them and basically you don't know what to answer them, because the reality in the land is clear. You know, you don't need to be an engineer, an ecologist or something to realize that it's a disaster, you know. And right now, so I hope that till the end of this June, we will officially have this forest protected, because now on June 9 we have elections. And in order to not lose the money from the European Union with the new forestry code, they must pass it till the end of June, you know. So right now, you know, we are still speaking with every parliamentarian one by one, you know, trying to convince them of all these things. So yes, I'm positive that we'll have a good result, but at the expense of my white hair and of my energy, time, and money and everything. So yes, it affects me in the sense that it makes the finish line longer, let's say, but we shall succeed.
Thank you, Alex. And we have about 10 minutes left, and so we open the floor to the public, to the audience. If there are questions, please feel free and raise your hand or write in the chat. Mark.
Okay, so I come from the media, so I'm going to ask a question from that perspective. So Marta, Astrid, and Alex, you've had victories, no, over misinformation. I would say small ones, big ones. Alex, you're confident you're going to have this victory. Can you draw lessons from those victories, however small they may be, in terms of perhaps where the media had a role in this victory, overcoming some misinformation or false narratives?
Well, sorry, Astrid, did you want to go first?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I had some issue with my headphones, so I hope you can hear me well. Anyway, I think that I can give you one very clear example. In 2020, international media coverage was essential for us in forcing the Draghi government at that time to issue a second decree. What happened is that in summer 2021, Draghi issued the first decree that banned the cruise ship out of the lagoon. After 2 weeks, we had 2 cruise ships that were expected to enter again through the Giudecca Canal back to the terminal as safe business as usual, same as it was. We organized a demonstration, and in that demonstration, we had small to no media coverage, both local and national. What we had was international media, or the news of our demonstration saying that unraveling the hypocrisy of the government at that time was all over the news. And we had interview taken by Indonesian press, Australia, United States, UK, as well as other countries of Europe. And in 2 days, we sent 5 pages of international press releases to the Ministry of the Environment at that time, saying that they have been exposed. And in a couple of days, a second decree was issued that was the final one. And of course, we had people, especially in the committee, that knew the people to talk to at the governmental level. At the same time, if we didn't have international media coverage, it would have been very difficult for us to give attention to the problem we were facing, because the only coverage we had in Italy was that of the independent press, and that also gave us the possibility, of course, to widespread and go into more depth at the research level and at the political level, because it allowed us to give insights and to give more to give a full evaluation of the risk as well as our demands. But of course, I mean, it would have been in that sense, I think that there was a very good alliance among us and journalists coming from all over the world.
As regards Malta, our situation is very particular because we are coming out of 2,000 years of colonization, which is a unique situation not shared by other European countries. This means that we have a very subservient population, which is ready to accept anything that it is told by the politicians, because it is used over all these centuries to having to accept a very hierarchical regime, which has consistently suppressed any development of free thought, of independent thought. Therefore, the independent media has been crucial to us from day one. And when you ask if there are particular campaigns which we have won through the media, it was hard for me to pinpoint one, because every campaign that we have won has been helped enormously by the independent media, especially since if you consider that we are banned on national television and radio. As a democratic country, it is unthinkable that environmental and heritage NGOs of a national standing that are recognized by the EU are absolutely boycotted and banned on national media. Now, keeping in mind that national media controls the electorate and controls the minds of most of the population. This is a Pravda-like situation. So if it were not for the independent media, I tell you, we would not have won any campaigns. Now, because it is them who drum up what remains of the support. One case in point was the project to excavate a 5-story underground museum just a couple of meters away from our cathedral, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Our Valletta Cathedral is a gem. It is outstanding all over the world. It is the equivalent, you could say it is the equivalent of the Taj Mahal, put it that way, of the Vatican. It is up to that level. Now, excavating through rock, 5 stories down, just 2 meters away from the walls of the cathedral, was an insane project. And yet, when it was launched, because it had the blessing and the promotion of the Prime Minister, of everyone in government, the people were led to believe that this was a great thing, which will draw hordes of tourists to Malta. It is only by pounding and pounding the airwaves of the independent media, the newspapers and the radios, that we managed to bring the population to understand the risks involved. And unfortunately, because of the stranglehold of the government in terms of contracts, in terms of tenders, we didn't have the support of the professional classes. We had architects coming to us to express their shock and horror that this would definitely affect the structural stability of the 16th century cathedral, but no one was ready to speak up. Therefore, the independent media was and remains crucial to us. There was a similar case in the development that was to take place around Malta's most beautiful bay in the Maltese Islands, Ramla al-Hamra and Gozo. It is a big wide bay which is presently virgin. It's one of the few bays in the Maltese Islands that has not succumbed to development. Prime site. Permit went through to start development of 30 villas, which would have spread all the way around the bay. Again, totally supported by the government of the time. Another case in Marsa Scala to set up a yacht marina in a prime residential bathing site. All of these supported and propelled by governments of the time. In the case of the Gozo Bay, we organized a major protest, and the permit was rescinded on a tiny technicality, which normally wouldn't have been taken into consideration. It was privately admitted that it was reversed because the government was taken aback at the size of the crowd, at the size of the protest and the outcry, which of course was fueled by coverage on independent media. Now, with that, I'm going to have to leave you, I'm afraid, but I do thank you very, very much for this platform and for the awareness that you're raising, which is absolutely crucial, not only to our environment, heritage, quality of life, but to our very democracy. Thank you so much.
Astrid.
Yes.
Before leaving, I just want to tell you something for you to leave in a funny note. At least be happy it was not a mall, it was a museum.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Best of luck.
Good evening all. Bye and thank you.
Bye. Okay, guys. So I'll try to answer to the question as well. I might have a particular situation. It might be a particular situation in my case because what I'm actually doing is to use my notoriety in Romania that I got in the sports field to put it at the help of different environmental and social causes. Okay, because I don't have only this project. I was involved in the past in protecting Romania virgin forest. Now I run another project that was on the first page of the BBC 2 years ago with a fish in the Transylvanian Alps, which is the rarest fish in Europe officially and maybe in the world, because of the way unsustainable that we are doing things here on this planet. So why I'm saying that my case might be a bit particular. It is because, first of all, for me, the media is not primarily, I speak personally, okay, in my name like now. So the media is not primarily for me an information channel. I don't care to inform the people. I use media as a partner for doing good. Okay, I see media as a tool for doing good. And secondary, I inform people. But first and everything, I use media as a leverage that I have with the other side, not with the positive side of the force. Okay. So in this particular project with the green belt, what I have done first was to get on board all the political parties, even the one that I don't like, because we needed consensus, because the air pollution, it's not something that is related with politics. Okay, all the politicians breathe the same bad air like me, like everyone. It doesn't matter who you are, how wealthy you are, and so on. So one thing that I done, it was to gather the people and also to put them sign a memorandum of understanding that it's all these political parties sign this memorandum. The last on the list will be actually next week, and I'll give Giovanni the link to spread it to you all. I don't want to, to unveil now what it's all about. But the fact is that I wrote this memorandum, signed it with the politicians and also with the president of the ILFOV country, with the mayor of Bucharest, with the Minister of Environment, with the chief of all the big political parties, 11 names on the memorandum. And the memorandum is not only related to the creating the green belt, it's also related to concrete steps, solutions to tackle the pollution in Bucharest and other big cities. So usually each kind of little thing, each Senate committee that I passed, each part of the process, I try to push it into the media, because after I got some significant media coverage, from big media outlets, then I was sending these links on those politicians. So basically, I got a small success. It got into the media, and then I sent it to the chief of the Senate, to the chief of the Chamber of Deputy, to the prime minister, to the lady who is dealing at the Romanian president with environmental issues. So all the time, I kept these people involved, and also like the authors of my bills, I officially took politicians from these parties. So basically the last environmental minister and the current environmental minister are from different parties, but they are authors in my bill. The chief of the forestry commission in the Senate, or the chief of the environmental commission in the Chamber of Deputies. So not only I took them along, but I keep them informed and thanking them every time, even if some of them I don't like them, And in this case, I build up momentum and support. And some of the people who initially didn't get the idea, and they were even trying to resist a bit the idea, they got some of the biggest supporters of the idea now. Only because I keep them warm, because I keep them informed, because I was calling them once a week, of course, at the expense of a huge amount of energy and time, that's sure. So for me, media, it's a channel of doing good. For me, media is part of my team, let's say. It's a member of my team. It's very important. So usually when I'm giving something to the press, it gets everywhere, to the TVs, to Forbes magazine, to the business magazines, not only niche magazines like environmental news. No, it gets everywhere you can think of, yeah. And yeah, I mean, in Euronews, even in the Euronews Europe, I had the last year on the TV everywhere in Europe a story about this fish, for example. So this is the way I see. But in order to do this, you know, because some people in Romania, in the civil society, in the NGOs, and I don't really, even I have an NGOs, I have my own foundation. I don't really consider myself an NGO guy. No, I'm just a person who wants to do good. You know what I mean? And some people in the NGOs, you know, they have a media list. Yeah, they have a media list. And if they want to transmit something, they just send an email to everyone. Of course, nobody is looking. So basically, when I have a story, something that is really important, I have a kind of, I mean, I have some many contacts, because, you know, since the high school to now, I was dealing with different journalists, because in high school also I created an environmental NGO that is still active in my high school. Yeah. So basically, since those time, I started to know journalists, especially with my expeditions in the Himalayas, right? And I haven't been there for 2 years because of this Greenbelt project. I'm now 13 kilo overweight, but this is another story because I need to train. But what I want to say about the journalists is that few people understand that journalists every day, you need to fight in the like this for the attention of the journalists in the country and in the world. They are happening millions of things every moment. Okay. They have deadlines. They are overwhelmed by their work and so on. So why they should publish you? So I think a journalist, at least from my experience, will publish you for 3 reasons. And the last is how important is the subject. I'm sorry to tell you. First is that they know you and they respect you, at least in my opinion, at least in my case. Secondly, is that you are having a personal connection with that journalist, many, some of them dating for many years, and you are not going to the journalist to ask things. They call you in a lot of things, asking for your opinion, and you help them every time that was possible. And only the third time is that the thing is newsworthy, because other thing, any little shit, you can transform it in a news if you know how to package it. You know better than me, you know. So for me, this is the things. So when I have something important, okay, don't write to 200 journalists, but you know, I have a, I don't know, 30 people list that are really important to me and close to me. You know, TV, main TVs, main websites, main newspapers, and all the time, usually, if I want to push into the media a project, I call these people, each one of them personally, and I explain them about the project and make them knowledgeable about the project, you know, and get them to understand that it's not about me, it's about the thing that affects us all, including the journalist. And the journalist want to write because this will make his own life and his children's life better, because the journalists, like me, like everyone, are people first and foremost. So that's why I'm saying that maybe my approach is a bit, I don't know, particular, because I'm aware that it does not work in this way in maybe 99.99% of the time. But you know, I think each and every one of us should find the way, their own particular way, in order to push a story into the media if that story relates with the good of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Marta and Astrid, for your contribution. I think that we are going to close, since we are already 10 minutes late, and thank
We
you
are
for
never
your
late.
yeah.
For
Thank
now.
you for your insights that were very enriching, and I just want to invite everyone to the next debate that will be on the 12th of June. That is Wednesday at 6 p.m. Like today, and it will be about corruption. And to follow the newsletter of the sinfo project, and you can find you can subscribe in our website, and yeah, just keep in touch and follow this project. There will be more events and more trainings for activists and journalists in the next weeks and months.
If I may say so, may I say something? One more idea I just realized now. Also related to the journalist work. You know, there are stories and stories. And for some people, it is really important to be the first to give the news. For the others, less important. And depending on the story and on the angle of the story, sometimes some particular news I give to like the main news agency in Romania. You know, everyone is taking from this agency. So because of this, usually if I want to give a press release for tomorrow morning, I always send the press release to this news agency before in the evening for them to have the time to prepare the material. So only after they publish the news, I give to other people. And this made me to have a great relationship with these people. And also, for example, if it's not a news, if it's a feature, for example, okay, it's not a news, it's a feature. It's not something that I need to, how to say, that happened today, but to do a feature about the story. Then usually I think, okay, who would be the most relevant, for example, for that particular story? Would that story be more relevant to have an interview in the prime time, for example, on one TV? Or would it be better to ask a newspaper journalist to go to the forest, to explain things, to bring along some more people, you know, so depends. Many time I like to customize the subject to the particular outlet or to a particular journalist. Thank you, guys, and it was a pleasure to be with you this evening, and I hope it was good for everybody.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Very
Thank
good.
you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.